Hayom Yom Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Hayom Shabbat, Shabbat Menucha, Shabbat Shalom, U'Mivah. Hayom Yom Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Hayom Shabbat, Shabbat Menucha, Shabbat Shalom, U'Mivah. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Shabbos, 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 Shabbos. Soll seine jeden Shabbos. Shabbos soll sein, Shabbos soll sein, Shabbos läuft der ganze Welt. Hoi, Shabbos soll sein, Shabbos soll sein, Shabbos läuft der ganze Welt. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la la. Ya la la la.
Shabbat Shalom. It's
Shabbat Shalom.
Good to
Shabbos.
be with all of you again. You may not be able to tell this immediately, but we're actually outdoors
And it's raining.
On our patio, and we actually have a little bit of a congregation tonight because we have people walking their dogs, and they seem to be enjoying the music so far. So they are our movable congregation, if you will. As you can see, we have some special candles here, and that is because this week we observe, along with Jews all over the world, Yom HaShoa, the remembrance of the Shoah, of the Holocaust. More about that a little later on. An opening prayer. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. My goodness. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we care nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better and healthier world our goal. And so we embrace, once again, Shabbat, a day of rest, a day of wonder, a day of peace. We offer thanks to God for this Shabbat, which unites us in faith and in hope. For Shabbat holiness that inspires sacred living, for Shabbat memories glowing even in dark times, for Shabbat peace, born of friendship and love. For all this and more, we offer our thanks and prayers.
And we say, Amen. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. May blessings fill your home. May the gift of Shabbat for you give you joy, give you strength the whole day through. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. May blessings fill your home. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. We join together, you guys at home and us here, to welcome Shabbat together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kirshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu להדליק נר של שבת. אמן. בואי מלאכים, בואי מלאכים, בואי מלאכים, להדודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, להדודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. שבת לקבלה, בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצוח עלי, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי כלה, לך דודי רבי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Good Shabbos, everyone. Good Shabbos.
That was pretty exciting, wouldn't you say?
Don't need a drum.
And so we turn.
God is with us.
That's for sure. So we lift once again the Kiddush cup wherever you are. If you have a glass of wine or juice, please raise the cup with us as we join together in chanting the Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu b'shabbat kodesho b'ahava u'ratzon b'nchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, אותנו קידשת, מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך, באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. אמן. Shabbat shalom, l'chaim, to your health and to ours.
Health, and wholeness.
And so
Amen.
we are about to turn to the actual service itself, the Baruch Hu and the Shema. So if you are able to or wish to, please rise and join us. I think we'll stay right here so we're on camera. And so we chant together. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach. Le'olam va'ed. And now we proclaim, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Eternal is our God, the Eternal God is one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malechuto Le'olam va'ed.
We join together in chanting Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha. Celia, especially loud and strong. Ve'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha u'v'lechtecha b'derech u'v'shochtecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'einecha u'k'tavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha leman tizkuru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim v'hiyot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem. Amen. And you must love the one, your God, with all your heart. We must love the one, our God, with all our hearts, with every breath, with all that we have. And we take these words now to heart, and we teach them intently to our children. We speak of them when we sit inside our home, or when we have the joy and pleasure of being out in nature. We speak them in our lying down and in our rising up. And we bind these as a sign upon our hand and keep them visible before our eyes. In mezuzot, we inscribe these words of faith on the doorposts of our house and upon our gates. And may our actions be faithful to our words, that our children's children may live to know these promises, to care for the earth and those, everyone who lives upon it, to pursue justice, to pursue shalom, peace, to love kindness, to be compassionate. Truth and gemilut chasadim, truth and loving kindness will embrace, peace and justice will embrace and be one.
Next we come to well-known and often repeated part of the service that comes from the Torah, the Michamocha, which many of you know is what the Israelites are said to have sung in celebration after they crossed through the sea on their way to freedom. I wanted to just briefly comment upon that. I think you probably know as well that the journey from slavery to freedom was about 40 years. Actually, it was 40 years, perhaps even longer. And I want to share two words with you, one that you probably know already and one that you may not know. The first word is spilkus, which is, of course, Yiddish for, I think it's bed bugs, actually, but it really means, of course, being nervous and wanting to get it going already. And the other word is savlanut, which means patience. And these two words and this song have a special meaning for us as we're sitting here wondering how long it's going to take us to get through this terrible coronavirus, how long before our lives return to some semblance of normalcy. Of course, none of us know, and none of us are prophets. We hope soon, but it might not be. But I am sure that in the wandering of the 40 years, the Israelites had plenty of spilkus. In fact, they weren't shy about telling Moses that.
Or God.
Or God, yes. And in fact, at one point they said, why did we leave Egypt at all? At least we had fresh cucumbers every day, which of course sounds preposterous. But it's just a way of reminding us that they're not so much different than we are. We want to get through the trek and get to the promised land. And therefore, the second word is the one that we really have to keep in mind and do our best to practice, and that is saplanut, to be patient, to be hopeful that the scientists and the physicians are guiding us with skill and with wisdom, and that if we all just stick together and don't kvetch so much, don't have so many shvilkas, before long we'll see that this will in some way be behind us. Ken Yehi Ratzon, God willing. Mi chamocha.
And I would add that we also have to have faith. Hope and faith. And with that, we take the leap of faith with our ancient matriarchs and patriarchs through the Red Sea and forward into unknown but promised land. La 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 Rabbi, mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha neder b'kodesh, no tehilot osef eleh, no tehilot osef eleh. מלכותך ובניך, בוקי הים לפני משה ומרים, זה לי, ענו ואמירו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גל ישראל, גל העולם, וגל הילדים, והכל העמים, והזקנים, גל ירושלים.
In Reformed Judaism, we hang on to the old prayers, but sometimes we improvise a little bit and add words of our own, whether in Hebrew or in English. So,
my specialty.
Cantor, yes. You never quite know where it's going to go, but always seems to go in a good direction.
What I added.
Okay, as we do every week, we offer our prayers good wishes and hopes for those who are ill. And, of course, there are thousands who are suffering with the coronavirus in our country and the world at large. And I should add, yes, there have definitely been cases in our counties, should I say, and in our own Jewish community as well, lest anyone think that somehow it has escaped our area. It has not, and we need to remember that, especially when we choose to go out. We got to wear a mask. That's all there is to it. I consider it a mitzvah, and actually I consider it a patriotic duty, not only to keep yourself healthy, but to prevent yourself, God forbid, from spreading the virus to anyone else. We've got enough to us with this as it is. The very least we can do is to cooperate fully and to wear a mask whenever we need to go anywhere outside our home.
No
Well,
peace.
with that thought in mind, and it's more than a thought, it's an instruction from your rabbi, that we turn to the Misha Berach and offer a prayer and a song for those who are ill and some of whom are struggling simply to survive.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mikol HaBeracha May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu, mikor haberacha liavoteinu. Bless those who need healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We continue now with a memorial section of our service. As I mentioned before, this is Yom HaShoa this week, and we observe it in our synagogue on Friday night. The word Shoah is not exactly the same as the word Holocaust. And I always like to take a moment or two to express this. The word Holocaust in English, although well-intentioned, one that was penned, if you will, for this horrible episode of Jewish history, essentially means a burnt offering, something which is offered up to God as a sacrifice in the spirit of thankfulness and praise. I don't think that in any way we could apply that concept to what happened to our people during those horrible times. And so around the world, increasingly, we have gravitated to the term Shoah. In fact, the Steven Spielberg Foundation, which is devoted to the recording orally of the histories of Holocaust survivors, and I said Holocaust, I realize, is called the Shoah Foundation correctly. And so that is why we call this particular observance, this holy day, by the name that it has. And so at this time, on the week of Yom HaShoah, we remember once again the most devastating episode in all of our Jewish history. From year to year, it recedes a little further into the past, but the enormity of it remains beyond our utter comprehension, and the pain of it beyond consolation. All we know for certain is that we have a duty to remember, for the sake of those who perished, so that they may never be forgotten, for the sake of those descendants who survived them, so that they may know that they are not alone in their sorrow, and for our own sake, that we may not be blind to the evil of which human beings sadly are capable. And, yes, for the sake of future generations, so that they may well consider what is required to prevent such a Shoah, such a horror from ever happening again to our people or to any people. We pledge ourselves to remember. We pledge ourselves never, never to forget. As I believe most are aware, this year marked the 75th anniversary, if we can use that word, of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau and essentially the end of the Second World War. And there were observances throughout the world, but especially in Jerusalem and also in Germany and at Auschwitz itself. And with that number 75, it becomes more evident all the time that soon there really will not be any living survivors of the camps. That's just the way things are. In fact, there are fewer all the time, fewer veterans of the Second World War still living. And the reason I mention this is because with the passing of each of the survivors, the responsibility shifts more and more to us, the living. And there is a reading that I always find to be poignant and applicable to all of us who, thank God, are still here today. It's called The Last Survivor. It was written by Rabbi Michael Farhi, a rabbi in Paris. Wherever you may be, wherever that may be, I shall be there with you, the last survivor. Because you will be the last survivor, I will be there, I promise you. I promise to be the memory of your memory, I promise that what you have endured will not be erased from the human conscience. I promise you this ultimate justice, that neither your name nor your suffering shall be permitted to vanish from world history. You were one man, one woman, but it is as if you had been one suffering humanity. And because you will be the last, it will be my duty to take over your martyrdom as one takes over in a relay, not in order to relive it, but to relate it for all time. We must bear witness before history, so that criminals shall no longer be absolved. We must teach all children that having become adults, they need to build a society conscious of its past and resolutely turned toward a future of justice, love, and peace.
Schloobje mir schon jankele, meine Schiene, die eigene, die schwarzinke macht zu. A jingele, was hat schon ordnet sendele, muss noch die Mama singen, Halleluja, jingele, was hat schon ordnet sendele, muss noch die Mama singen, Halleluja, muss noch Mama singen,
As we gaze upon these 6 candles, we realize, of course, that they are the smallest possible way of expressing remembrance of 6 million human beings and millions of others, not Jews, who suffered and perished in not only the Shoah, but in the broader Second World War, in the hope that a peace would come to the world at last.
A poem. On a sunny evening, on a purple, sun-shot evening under wide-flowering chestnut trees upon the threshold full of dust. Yesterday, today, the days are like these. Trees flower forth in beauty, lovely too, their very wood gnarled and old, that I am half afraid to peer into their crowns of green and gold. The sun has made a veil of gold, so lovely that my body aches. Above, heavens shriek with blue, convinced I've smiled by some mistake. The world's abloom and seems to smile. I want to fly, but where? How high? If in barbed wire things can bloom, why shouldn't I? I will not die. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. 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 Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael 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 Chai.
And now the El Malay Rachamim, first in English. O God, full of compassion, grant perfect rest in your presence among the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament. To the souls of the millions of our people who died, Al-Kiddush Hashem, for the sanctification of your name. Merciful God, shelter them forever, and let their souls be bound up in the bond of eternal life. May you console them in eternity, and may they rest in peace. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them.
In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them.
In the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them.
In the blueness of the sky and the warmth of summer, we remember them.
In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them.
In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them.
When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them.
And when we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them.
When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. And if you care to rise, as is traditional, and join us in reciting El Male, and share your own thoughts and join in. Amen. השוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כי זו הקיום מסירים את נשמות יקירנו שהלכו לעולמו. בעל הרחמים, הסתירהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמי. בצרור החיים את נשמתם. אדוני הוא נחלתם. וינוחו בשלום
Just a few comments before we come to the concluding part of our service. Been a rabbi now more than 40 years, and have conducted services for Yom HaShoa many times. And with each passing year, I find myself even less and less capable of giving any kind of sermon. I don't really believe it's my place to do so. Frankly, I did not lose any direct relatives in the Holocaust, although I've known many others who have, and I've heard countless stories. But I also feel that less and less do words really help. That action is what is called for, as I read in the Last Survivor, that we have a duty to remember and a duty to do our very best in our own way to make sure that nothing like this ever happens again. But I also believe that, and have come to believe more and more, that along with remembering as best we can in our own very finite way the great tragedy of our people, we would be remiss if we did not remember as well those who did so much to save Jewish lives. This is an aspect of our Jewish history that was ignored for far too long after the war, perhaps understandably so. But in recent years, we've become more and more aware of what are called in Hebrew the Chasidei Umot HaOlam, the righteous among the Gentile people, the non-Jews of the world. And you may know that in Israel there is the International Memorial to the Shoah, which is called Yad Vashem. And along with collecting the stories, the names of all those who perished, and that probably will never be completed, they also take it as a sacred opportunity and responsibility to remember those who did save Jewish lives. And the number is really not small. I looked recently at the archives of Yad Vashem and found that to date nearly 27,000 stories have been assembled of people who are not Jewish at all and who saved many Jewish lives. Beginning, of course, the story that we know so well from Schindler's List, which is Oskar Schindler, but including many others, some of whose names we've never heard before. And if you are interested, and I hope you are, you could go to the website for Yom HaShoa, and you will see actually all the names that are listed by country. And I thought I would, at the very least, mention several that stand high on the list. These are all people who have been remembered by planting a tree along the Avenue of the Just at Yad Vashem. And I'd like to share just, I can't say a top 10, but a notable 10 from many different countries. Raoul Wallenberg of Sweden, who saved literally tens of thousands of Jews by issuing Swedish passports to, of course, people who were not Swedish at all and who simply disappeared in the Gulag at the end of the war. Oskar Schindler of Germany. Karl Lutz of Switzerland, who was stationed in Budapest and who saved over 62,000 people by issuing to those Jews Swiss passports. Dimitar Peshev, the Bulgarian speaker who prevented the deportation of virtually all of Bulgaria's 48,000 Jews, virtually all of them. Jose Castellanos Contreras of Salvador, who saved 40,000 Jews by providing them with false Salvadorian national papers. Aristides de Sousa Mendes of Portugal, who saved 12,000 Jews by issuing Portuguese visas to them without any charge, of course. George Fernando Dukowitz, who single-handedly warned the Jews of Denmark about the impending Nazi plan to deport them, which led 6,000 Jews of Denmark to escape to freedom, to Sweden. Ho Fengchen of China, serving in Vienna, who saved over 1,000 Jews and who is known as China's Schindler. And the last one I mentioned only today is Chinui Sugahara, a Japanese diplomat who saved thousands of Jews by issuing visas for Jews to go to Japan during the war years, and I must remind you, at a time when Japan and Germany, of course, were allies. A small sampling, but I believe that more and more, as we look back upon those days, we need to do so not only with horror, of course, yes, but also with the understanding that we are not necessarily as alone as we sometimes tend to believe, that we have had and still have many friends and people who risked their lives, who risked everything for the sake of people that they did not know, only because it was the right thing to do. This is so important that we remember on this Yom HaShoah. Those are my comments for this evening, and so we'll continue now as we turn to the Aleinu and join together in chanting.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
As we turn now to the Kaddish, these are the yortzites that we remember in Temple Bethel this week. Maggie Osner remembers David Osner. Dr. Lois Gerber remembers Eli Gerber. Beverly Saffron remembers William Saffron. And our Temple family remembers Sally and Henriette Wolf. The Faber Drucker family, Minnie Greenblum, Louis Geller, Aaron Fox, Ruth Goldman, and Jacob Ben-Zekri. And as well, Cantor has a name that she would like to recite of a dear one who passed away just this week.
My really dear and wonderful friend, Joan Taxay Wenger, a remarkable human being and a gifted artist. In our family, we loved her very deeply. She's been, her funeral is today in Chicago. So, to Joan,
We join together.
we also remain all those who have not survived this virus. With strength, though, we move forward with hope. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbi, ve'alma divrach chilutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon, u'chayedecho Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shemei Rabba mevarach, li'olam u'lamei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach, Yitoar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, Yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, Shemei d'kudashah b'richu, Le'elam min kol berchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, Damiran b'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim, Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Ose shalom bimromav, huyase shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, and bring comfort to all who are bereaved. And together let us say, Amen. Ose shalom bimromav, huyase shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru, Amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Ve'imru, Chazan, Ellen, join us. Amen. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Stay well.